Okay, imagine this for a second. What if a lot of your thoughts, maybe even the decisions you make every day, what if those core beliefs you hold aren't entirely hell? Well, yours.
Hmm.
Like they're these subtle forces, right?
Mm.
Schools, media, who you hang out with.
Yeah, social norms, psychological triggers.
Exactly, all kind of nudging your thinking. We're not talking, big conspiracy stuff here.
No, not at all. It's more about how the world actually works, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's how these influences right from the start just shape how we see things.
It's less about someone pulling strings and more the interplay. Society structures our own minds.
Right. And that's what we really want to dig into today.
Yeah.
Our goal here is to kind of shine a light on these forces, to help you understand how your thinking gets formed and maybe how you can take back a bit more control.
Learn to see the invisible strings, so to speak.
Yeah. Spot the strings, think more clearly. That's the idea.
And it can be. Well, a bit unsettling, can't it? When you start seeing this stuff.
Definitely. Like that saying, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right. It's empowering, sure. But independent thought, it can feel a bit, I don't know, dangerous sometimes. Challenging.
Totally. Which actually brings us nicely to this idea from our source, the mind trap.
Okay.
Picture your mind like a courtroom. Your biases, that's the prosecution.
Got it.
Your ego, always protecting you. That's the defense.
And you're the judge.
Supposedly. But how objective can you really be judging your own thoughts?
That's a powerful analogy because we're so tangled up in our own beliefs, our own feelings. Objectivity is really, really hard.
It really is. Our minds are so good at, well, fooling us, convincing us something's true just because we thought it.
That conviction.
Yeah. And that's what fuels those endless comment threads online, isn't it? Everyone's so sure they're right.
And the crucial question, hey, what if I'm wrong, just doesn't get asked enough.
Exactly. That failure to question ourselves, that's a huge blind spot.
Yeah, it creates this kind of closed loop, doesn't it? We just keep reinforcing what we already think, whether it's accurate or not, trapped in our own viewpoint.
Think about it, like on a practical level. Ever had a really strong gut feeling about someone
Sure.
and then found out you were totally off base?
Oh, definitely. Or assuming a friend is mad at you.
Yes. And it turns out they were just having a bad day, nothing to do with you.
That's the brain filling in the gaps, right? Making assumptions. We do it constantly.
All the time, these mental shortcuts.
They can be useful sometimes for quick stuff, but often lead to, well, mistakes, misinterpretations.
But here's the good news.
Yeah.
You listening right now, you can actually train your brain to fall for its own tricks less often.
It's possible.
The real question, though, is, do you want to? Because once you start really questioning things,
There's no going back to blissful ignorance, maybe.
pretty much, it's the trade-off. Like our source material says, ignorance might feel comfortable.
But clarity, seeing things as they are, or closer to how they are, that's a kind of power.
Okay, so why do we fall into these traps? Let's unpack that. The source talks about the brain being, well, a bit lazy.
Lazy might sound harsh, but it's about energy conservation, fundamentally.
Right. Thinking hard burns calories.
It really does. So the brain looks for shortcuts. It defaults to the first plausible answer, often.
Which explains why changing our minds feels so exhausting sometimes.
Exactly. It requires effort to override those default pathways.
And it's why someone who sounds super confident, even if they don't know much,
can be more convincing than a real expert who's maybe less polished.
yeah. We stick to the familiar because, well, rethinking is hard work.
And add to that laziness, overconfidence. Our brains tend to think we know more than we do.
The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Precisely. Where the least knowledgeable people often overestimate their competence the most.
We see it all the time, don't we? Everyone's suddenly a finance guru during a crash or
Or political analyst during an election, yeah.
that gap between what we think we know and what we actually know.
And the source makes a sharp point here. If you think, oh, that doesn't apply to me,
Uh-oh.
that might just be the effect itself talking.
Ouch. Okay. It's a good reminder for intellectual humility.
Definitely. Knowing the limits of your knowledge is key.
So, how do we fight back against the laziness, the overconfidence?
The answer, according to the source, is simple but not easy. Ask better questions. And don't just soak up information. Interrogate it. Ask things like, What's the actual evidence for this?
Or what's the counter-argument here?
Am I believing this because it's comfortable or because it's, accurate?
These questions force your brain off the easy path.
They do, but most people, as the source notes, prefer certainty, even false certainty.
Right. It feels better than being unsure.
But pushing past that, embracing that uncertainty, that's where real critical thinking happens. It's about wanting to be correct, not just convinced.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The source is pretty direct here. Why most people are easy to manipulate.
Oof, that's blunt.
And here's a kicker. Thinking you aren't easily manipulated. That might make you more vulnerable.
It's a classic blind spot, isn't it? If you think you're immune, your guard is down. Like thinking you're too good a driver to have an accident.
Exactly. You get less careful.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Ever suddenly craze a burger after seeing a commercial?
Guilty.
That's influence. Or forming a strong opinion just from a headline.
Happens all the time. Or feeling a connection with someone just because they smiled and made eye contact. These are subtle cues.
And the source clarifies, this isn't always bad. Persuasion is part of life.
Right. The danger is when you're unaware it's happening. Our brains love cognitive ease.
What's that exactly?
Information that feels simple, familiar, emotionally resonant. It just slides in easier. We accept it with less scrutiny.
Okay. And that's what manipulators exploit.
Pretty much. Think scary news headlines grabbing your fear.
Or politicians repeating simple slogans over and over.
Until they just feel true. Or how sheer confidence can often trump actual competence.
So how do we resist? How do we build up defenses?
The key strategy suggested is turning into your emotional triggers.
Okay.
When you feel a strong emotion, anger, fear, excitement, even strong agreement, that's your cue.
To do what?
To pause. Ask yourself, who benefits from me feeling this way right now?
Good question.
What evidence do I actually have? Would I react the same if this was presented differently?
Most people just react, though. They don't hit pause.
Exactly. That automatic reaction is the vulnerability. Inserting that moment of reflection gives your logical brain a chance to catch up.
Which leads us right into this idea, the hidden war between emotion and logic. We've all felt that, right? Knowing one thing, feeling another.
Yeah, the source points out that even though we value logic, emotion often wins the day in decision-making.
It feels like emotions are just faster.
They often are, processed more quickly. That fear response, that flash of anger, it happens before the logical brain fully engages.
And then the logical brain scrambles to justify the emotional reaction afterwards.
Often, yes. We rationalize the decision we already made based on feeling.
But our emotions aren't always reliable guides, are they?
No. They're swayed by so much past baggage, biases, how much sleep you got.
Right. So relying purely on gut feelings can lead you astray big time.
So the technique is to create distance
Like
between the feeling and the action.
How do you do that?
When that strong emotion hits, consciously pause. Ask, is this feeling based on the facts right now, or is it just my reaction, my history?
Just questioning it can weaken its hold.
Yes, it lets you observe the emotion, not just be swept away by it. Then you can bring logic back online.
Okay, let's talk about something super relevant today. The echo chamber that's controlling you.
Ah, yes. Social media feeds.
It's so easy to just see stuff that confirms what you already think.
Well, our brains like agreement. It feels good. And algorithms are designed to feed us more of what we engage with.
Which is usually stuff we already agree with.
Exactly. Plus, we tend to seek out confirming information ourselves. It all creates these bubbles.
And online debates. Forget about it. People just seem to be shouting past each other.
More waiting to talk than actually listening. Often.
So what's the danger of living in these echo chambers?
It actually makes your thinking weaker. You mistake repetition for truth.
Because you hear the same thing over and over your bubble.
Right. Your confidence goes up, but your actual knowledge, your exposure to different ideas goes down. Makes you easier to manipulate too.
So how do you break out?
You have to actively seek out challenging views. Intentionally.
Like read stuff you know you'll disagree with.
Yes. Follow people with different perspectives. Force yourself to genuinely consider the other side. Not to agree, necessarily.
But to sharpen your own thinking against it.
Exactly. It takes a bit of intellectual courage, maybe, to confront ideas that make you uncomfortable.
Okay, this fits perfectly with the next point. The power of asking the right questions. The source uses a detective analogy.
Yeah, a good detective doesn't just ask, did you do it? They dig deeper.
Weak questions like, is this true, can just lead you to confirm your biases.
Right. But stronger questions like, what evidence would prove me wrong? That forces a different kind of thinking.
Or, here's a great one, Instead of, do I like this idea? Ask, who benefits if I believe this?
That's powerful because if an idea is being pushed hard,
Someone usually has a reason, an agenda. Asking who benefits cuts through a lot of noise.
and the source calls this the real game changer, asking, how do I actually know this?
How do I know this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people, if you push them, can only say, I heard it somewhere, or it just feels right.
But really questioning the source of your knowledge that forces deeper understanding reveals the weak spots.
Definitely.
Now, let's get into how your brain tricks you into believing lies. Because it's not a perfect recorder, is it?
Far from it. It interprets, filters, fills gaps, even subtly rewrites memories to fit our current beliefs.
Without us realizing.
Often, yes. Confirmation bias is huge here, as we've said.
You notice the things that fit your theory and ignore the things that don't.
It literally filters your perception of reality.
And what about the illusion of truth effect?
Ah, that's fascinating. Just hearing a lie repeated often enough can make it start to feel true, even if you initially knew it was false.
That's scary. Explains a lot about propaganda, misinformation.
Familiarity breeds acceptance. It's a potent psychological trick.
So the defense strategy is relentless questioning, especially of your own strong beliefs.
Pretty much. When you feel that certainty, I just know this is true, that's your cue to dig.
Ask, do I know it or just feel like I know it? Check sources. Look for opposing views.
It's about actively fighting your brain's tendency to take the easy, self-confirming path.
Which brings us to something interesting. Why smart people make dumb decisions. Intelligence isn't foolproof.
Not at all. Sometimes it can even make things worse.
How?
Well, smart people can be better at rationalizing flawed ideas, building really elaborate, convincing arguments for why their bad decision is actually good.
Using their intelligence to defend the error, not find the truth.
Exactly. And overconfidence is a big factor, too. If you're used to being right, you might assume you're right this time, too, without enough scrutiny.
And emotional reasoning still applies.
Absolutely. Smart people aren't immune to feelings clouding judgment. Think bad investments, messy relationships. Logic can fly out the window.
So the solution is humility.
Intellectual humility, yes. Assume you might be missing something. Actively seek out criticism. Play devil's advocate against yourself.
Basically, the moment you think, I'm too smart for this, that's when you're most at risk.
That's a good way to put it. It's about staying vigilant against your own cleverness sometimes.
Okay, let's tackle this big one. The illusion of free thinking. Do we really think for ourselves?
The source really challenges that, suggesting that so much of what we believe, our values, even our sense of who we are, it's programmed.
By parents, culture, school, media.
Think about it. If you were born in a different country, raised in a different household, your core beliefs would likely be vastly different.
Yeah, that's undeniable. We absorb so much from our environment.
And the source makes a provocative point. Society often doesn't want truly critical thinkers.
Why not?
Independent thinkers are harder to control, aren't they? They question authority, challenge trends, analyze messages.
They don't just accept things at face value, which can be inconvenient for institutions, corporations.
Potentially, yes. So the first step to breaking free, according to the source.
Question the origins of your own beliefs.
Ask, did I research this? Or did I just absorb it? Is it mine? Or is it inherited?
That questioning alone is powerful. The start of genuine independent thought.
It's foundational, moving from passive acceptance to active examination.
Which loops back to the trap of emotional thinking. Those heat-of-the-moment regrets.
We've all sent that text, quit that job, made that choice, fueled by emotion, regretted later.
Because strong emotions just short-circuit the rational brain.
They prioritize immediate feeling over careful analysis. Fear makes you freeze, excitement makes you reckless, anger makes you lash out.
You choose what feels good now, not what's right long-term.
Exactly. So the strategy, again, is that pause. Before a big decision, let the emotions cool down.
And ask that question. If I were totally calm, would I still do this?
It creates that critical space for logic to reassert itself.
So emotions aren't bad, they're just unreliable narrators sometimes.
That's a great way to put it. Recognize when they're driving and consciously take back the wheel.
Now, what about the cost of being a passive thinker? Who are these passive thinkers?
The source describes them as people who mostly react, don't question much, accept opinions easily. They let the world dictate their thoughts.
In society. kind of like passive thinkers.
In some ways, they're easier to manage, buy into things, follow the rules without much fuss.
But the cost for the individual?
Huge. You end up being programmed by ads, politicians, algorithms without even knowing it. You lose control over your own mind, your choices.
So waking up, starting to question everything. That's how you reclaim power.
That's the key. Critical thinkers challenge, analyze, decide for themselves. They become, as the source says, dangerous to those who profit from passivity.
Let's talk about breaking free from mental shortcuts. That brain laziness again.
It loves shortcuts, heuristics to save energy. Stereotypes are a prime example.
Quick categorization avoids deep thinking, but often wrong, problematic.
Very. And other heuristics, trusting confidence over evidence, bowing to authority, going with your gut. They're fast, but flawed.
The brain feels like it's thinking, but it's just running old programs.
Pretty much autopilot. Breaking free means questioning those automatic responses.
Asking, am I thinking or just assuming? Challenging first impressions.
Forcing the brain onto the slower, harder path. Real thinking, the source says, is often uncomfortable. It's not autopilot.
Okay, and then the lies your brain tells you. It distorts reality.
To keep you comfortable, mainly. Protects the ego, avoids the discomfort of being wrong. It rewrites the narrative.
We conveniently forget when we were wrong, magnify when we were right.
And confirmation bias is the main tool here. Seeking confirming evidence, ignoring the rest. It builds those echo chambers in our own heads.
And being smart doesn't help. Might make it worse.
Can do. Better at defending the biases.
So the solution is seek discomfort.
Actively look for evidence that you are wrong. Challenge your own beliefs like you're trying to debunk them. Truth often lies in that discomfort zone.
And this leads back again to why most people are easily manipulated. It's a constant theme.
Because the manipulation is constant from so many angles. Ads, politics, media, algorithms.
The algorithm's exploiting anger just to keep you engaged.
Or news outlets prioritizing emotional outrage over actual importance because emotion drives clicks and views.
And emotional people are easier to control, less likely to think critically.
Often, yes. So again, the defense. Recognize your emotional triggers, pause, ask why this feeling and who benefits.
Awareness itself weakens the manipulation. Seeing clearly is dangerous to the manipulator.
Exactly. Empowerment through awareness.
And finally, let's circle back one last time to the hidden power of asking better questions. It really boils down to this, doesn't it?
A lack of critical thinking often stems from just not knowing how to question effectively, accepting things passively.
But the great thinkers, the innovators, they questioned everything.
Why is this true? Who says? What's the counter evidence? How can I be wrong? These were their tools.
Questions that reveal reality, cut through the BS. Big breakthroughs start with questioning assumptions.
What if we're wrong about this? That's a powerful starting point.
But most people avoid these questions. Why?
Fear, maybe. Fear of looking stupid, challenging authority, admitting you were wrong. So it's easier to stay silent, accept, obey.
But the source urges us. Make questioning a habit. Interrogate everything, including yourself.
Because truth doesn't come from passive acceptance. It comes from daring to ask the uncomfortable questions. That's the core of it.
So there we have it. We've really dug into this idea that, your mind, it's this incredible tool, but it can also be your adversary.
And it's operating in a world full of forces trying to influence it, often unseen.
But understanding these traps, these illusions, that puts you way ahead of the curve.
It gives you a choice and awareness that many people simply don't have.
And critical thinking, it's not just like an academic skill. It's fundamental. It's what separates leaders from followers, the aware from the exploited.
Which leads us to the final big question for you, the listener.
Yeah. Now that you can see through some of this noise, now that you have this awareness, what are you going to do with it?
Will you actually start questioning things more? Challenge your own assumptions?
Will you refuse to be so easily swayed? Put up those defenses.
Because just knowing about this stuff isn't enough, is it?
Not at all. It's about putting it into practice, applying it. That's where the real change happens.
So if you're ready to keep going, to really sharpen your mind in this, let's face it, distracting and deceptive world.
Keep exploring these ideas. Keep questioning. Because clear, critical thinking, that's how you truly thrive.